Since the massacres of October the 7th, Israel has been hard hit by more than 20,000 rockets and drones. People often ask me, what can I do to help? Well, I wholeheartedly recommend the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews.
With hundreds of homes ruined or destroyed, the fellowship is on the ground, bringing emergency food to the elderly in urgent need.
It's time that God-fearing people stand with our Jewish friends, have some hot food, and respond to God's calling on all our lives.
I want to play more pieces of tape here. I think it's very important to kind of get a full picture of the fallout regarding the Ukraine meeting. Let's play cut 10.
So I share the disillusionment that Ambassador McFaul was talking about. This was a disgraceful performance by the President of the United States, a disgraceful performance by the Vice President. They have humiliated the United States on the world stage. It reinforces all the suspicions of our European partners that America can no longer be trusted as an ally. And I think at the end of the day, perhaps this puts to rest some of the things we've been hearing, that there are some members in the GOP, for example, senators and others, who are trying to change President Trump's mind. I think that's gone at this point.
Look, none of this should be a shock to you guys. You guys know the stated position of President Trump, which is that no longer will our nation be taken advantage of. But understand, President Trump is doing very, very high-stakes diplomacy here. Incredibly high stakes. And Zelenskyy does not want to engage with that. You have to ask the question, would Zelenskyy rather be conquered by Putin and die fighting than do a deal? He doesn't have a country. Do you know what the average age of a soldier in Ukraine is? The average age, 43 years old. The average age of a soldier in Ukraine is 43. They are taking aging fathers out from communities and farms and putting them on the front lines into the meat grinder. And for what? And what did Zelenskyy run on? Oh, that's right. He canceled elections. You don't know if he even has the support of his people. Ukraine is one of the oldest countries in the world on average. They are burning up their future. They are destroying their demography. For what? An extra 50 miles of land that you may or may not control? Strike a deal. But Zelenskyy has other means, other goals, and some means to get there. What they are exactly, I'm not sure. And Zelenskyy keeps on saying, well, my people want this. How do you know what your people want if you don't have an election? Abraham Lincoln had an election in the midst of the American Civil War. FDR had elections in the midst of World War II. It's possible to do elections in the midst of war, conflict, strife. You see, Zelenskyy is playing with something very dangerous here. And the Europeans, it's all just a big show. It's all a big show. The Irish are coming out. Yeah, again, I love Ireland and I love the Irish people. It's not exactly the mighty fighting force of the Irish are going to stop the Russians. We are risking the highest level stakes. And President Trump was right when he said that. You don't know. You do not have the cards. And for anybody that says, oh, President Trump was disrespectful to Zelenskyy, you gotta reprogram. It's Zelenskyy that was disrespectful to President Trump. President Trump sat there nicely for 40 minutes. For 40 minutes. Trump rolled out the red carpet, literally the red carpet. It was an official state visit. With the honor guard lining the driveway, all the trappings. And Zelenskyy comes in with his arms crossed, threatening the United States of America, effectively threatening our country and threatening all of you. And Zelenskyy is now even done with Lindsey Graham. He's done. President Donald Trump wants to broker an end to the killing, a peace deal that will transcend all peace deals. But the warmongers in this country and Zelensky, and he's just blinded by war. You just have to kind of cast him aside. But for our own citizens and our own ruling class, the media chattering class, they want U.S. Marines in Kiev, and that's not going to happen. Peace is a threat to the warmongers. If we have permanent peace, what are these people going to do all day long? The job justification of our permanent general class. What are they going to do? This whole thing puts on display the military-industrial complex, the permanent unelected bureaucratic scientific elite. And there will be no winner. There are only losers. This is a Pyrrhic victory, as they would say. That even if you win, you lose. Even if you are the winner, you have no people left. Over 1.2 million people have been killed. That we know of. Entire generations are missing. Towns are gone. And Zelensky won't come to the table. Joining us now is the great Molly Hemingway from the Federalist. Molly, thank you for joining the program. Molly, what do you make of this idea that Zelensky might have somebody in his ear or that it was an intentional sabotage? Molly Hemingway.
Well, it was so weird to watch him go into this meeting that was ostensibly to get much further down the road of a peace agreement and see him just being unbelievably hostile. And he had met with all these different members of Congress prior to the meeting. And as everything blew up, they started talking about how either A, they had counseled him before he went into the meeting, or in some cases, like Lindsey Graham said, I counseled him not to behave the way that he behaved. So you realize that there was a lot of strategy going into why he was operating the way he was and the kind of information he was getting. You know, you even saw the New York Post the day before the meeting was saying, Zelensky, you should take your case directly to the American people because Trump's position isn't popular. Now, I think they were wrong, but the point is Zelensky was getting a lot of advice to behave at least somewhat in the manner that he ended up behaving.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand, though, what does Zelensky want by antagonizing President Trump? What is the end game here?
Now, it's a little tricky because you wouldn't say that a man whose country has been destroyed by war wants war. But there are aspects where to ending this war that would maybe not go well for Zelensky. He has not had democratic elections for some period of time. It was part of the martial law that has also seen the shuttering of opposition newspapers, opposition political parties, religious groups that are not aligned with his political preference. You know, and there's no election to hold him democratically accountable. I think he legitimately is concerned that if the elections were held, that he might not win again, and that this might raise questions about what his life is going to be like once the peace is established. And so he's seeking, and his allies in America and throughout the world are seeking U.S. security guarantees. And it's a nice euphemism, but what does it mean? Well, ultimately, a security guarantee means nothing unless it means U.S. troops willing to go on the ground to defend Ukraine in this proxy war. Well, that's not what the American people want. It is absolutely what the media complex wants, what the neocons in our country want, and what Europe wants. They want us to put our troops and our money to back this security guarantee. And so he thought that he had a shot to get that, and that's what blowing up the meeting was all about.
Okay, let's play cut one here. This is Lindsey Graham. You mentioned this cut. Play cut one.
I told him this morning, I told him, don't take the bait. Don't let the media or anybody else get you into a argument with President Trump. What he's doing today is resetting the relationship. You should be grateful. Now, whether or not we can put this back together, I don't know. But Zelensky's going to be on your network tonight. If I were him, I would profusely apologize to the way he treated our president and the vice president in the Oval Office and show a little bit of gratitude for what the American people have done.
Now I'm trying to understand all this. So, first of all, Zelensky did not apologize. I mean, Lindsey Graham is chief neocon. I mean, he is one of the chieftains. He's one of the grand poobahs of the warmongering machine. He, alongside of two or three others, design all of these failed conflicts and stay up late at night thinking of what other countries to invade. Why is it that Lindsey Graham was so quick to cast Zelensky aside. Do you think that Lindsay felt almost personally violated because Zelensky didn't receive the coaching?
Well, first of all, that's the quote that I think is so interesting, where he says, don't take the bait where these other people are telling you to be hostile, right? I mean, it's interesting. He's just saying what everyone can see, that he's getting coaching to be this way. I think Lindsey Graham cares more about continuing the war in Ukraine than he cares about Zelensky. So when he saw Zelensky completely implode in this Oval Office meeting, he realized that the best chance for the war to continue is to get rid of Zelensky. That way, if someone else comes in, you get a fresh start and you can, continue negotiations, as opposed to what happened that we all saw if you watched the full, 50 minutes of this meeting of Zelensky just seeming almost crazed in his hostility toward Trump and Vance.
So I want to now get into your, let's say, back and forth with Susan Rice. What happened here? Explain it to our audience, and what did you learn?
Well, it was just interesting. Immediately after everything blows up, Susan Rice goes on CNN to talk about the situation, and she says a lot of stuff that's really interesting. She opposes the peace deal that would be good for the United States. That alone is kind of shocking, to see a former national security advisor openly advocating against a peace deal that's in the United States' interest. She also reveals all this knowledge of what was in the mineral agreement. She kind of is suggesting she has deep insider knowledge about what was the agreement that Trump wanted Zelensky to sign about the minerals in Ukraine that could help repay us for all the money that taxpayers have spent there. She had the same talking point as Zelensky about concrete security agreements, meaning having U.S. troops on the ground if they can make that happen. And then she just mischaracterized Trump's behavior. She was so immediate with this that you could say, okay, well, maybe this is just Democrat talking points, and it really could be. But given that it's Susan Rice, and given how she runs operations, information operations, which she did, with the Benghazi disaster, where she immediately went out and lied and said that the attack on 9/11 was not part of Islamist attacks on the U.S. It was just an organic protest about a YouTube video that an American had made. And then she proceeded to try to criminalize the First Amendment and all that. She also did the Russia collusion hoax. She was in that very tiny meeting at the end of the Obama administration where they kind of hatched what to do with the Russia collusion.
That's right.
So that's kind of like what she does. She was UN ambassador. She was national security advisor. So seeing that she was out there immediately with this information operation, it looked like she might be knowledgeable of the effort to get Zelensky to do what he did, or, and so I just think that was interesting.
We haven't heard from Susan Rice in quite some time, so it's rather odd that it's coming out now. What would you say is a probable outcome here, Molly? And in closing, what do you make of the Europeans now talking a big game that they're going to defend Ukraine?
Well, it is a fraught situation. And it's, by the way, Ukraine has been a fraught situation since the implosion of the Soviet Union back during the George H.W. Bush administration. It's something we have to be very careful of. So I don't know how things are going to end. I do think Zelensky should stop taking advice from the people who are telling him to be hostile toward American voters and Trump. But a good outcome would be if the European countries really did start spending more on their own defense and did more to back their claims that Russia is a serious threat. A great outcome would be an end to this war on the best possible grounding for Ukraine. I think Trump still wants that. I hope he doesn't want it at the expense of American interest, but hopefully we'll get it there. I don't know if Zelensky will survive being president of his country for much longer.
Molly Hemingway from The Federalist. Excellent work as always. Thanks so much. Right after this blows up in the Oval Office, all of these European leaders start to tweet out support of Zelensky. And then this weekend, Keir Starmer hosted some sort of summit for Zelensky that all the leaders got on planes to come and surround him. If you were of the believer that this was staged, this certainly plays into that belief. Now, understand this. The Europeans don't have what it takes. Now, if the Europeans suddenly want to go raise a military and want to go actually support Ukraine, where has this been all along? Why does America have to fund 70% of NATO? Our GDP is about equal. with Europe's. If you combine all of Europe and all America, we're slightly richer. If Europe responded to this by upping their defense spending, we would be thrilled. We would be very, very happy. We want Europe to take more responsibility for its security. We want Europe to have more self-determination. So, mission accomplished, I guess. I just laugh at these Europeans that say, oh, we can't give more to NATO, we can't give more to, and all of a sudden, boom, as soon as they're put in a corner, oh, we're going to up our defense spending. Now, here is a tricky little sliver that we have to keep an eye on. Keir Starmer, the pseudo-Marxist prime minister of the United Kingdom, of the Labour Party, says that he's going to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. You might think, great, here's the problem. As soon as a single British troop is killed, it very well might trigger Article 5. Article 5 of NATO is a mutual defense agreement. An attack on one is an attack on all. So if the United Kingdom is going to put 10,000 troops in Ukraine and Russia kills 100 British soldiers, that triggers Article 5. That means American soldiers very well might be next, and we might be involved in this situation. Should we stay involved in NATO? Why are we in NATO if it's about getting us involved in a conflict, not keeping conflict from happening? Trump needs to get out in front of this, and he will. He needs to call all these leaders and say, this is a bunch of BS. I'm brokering peace. Stop all of your yammering. We're supposed to believe that the Europeans are going to be able to mount an army up against the Russians. NATO is designed to be a deterrent, but what NATO has done has actually provoked more conflict than it's prevented over the last decade. Let's go to some of the media reports here. There's so many of them. We don't have a ton of time. Let's go to 25.
Never in the history of modern diplomacy, war, peace, whatever, have I ever seen anything like it. We just have to hope that for the safety of the free world and for the American people, for the European people, for the Ukrainian people, that these two presidents get out of breath and try to iron out their differences. This was an entirely personal go-to with so many mistruths and misfacts.
That's Christine Amanpour from CNN. She is right about one thing. We've never seen anything like this. And I haven't seen anything like this in my lifetime. You know what that is? A president resolutely putting our nation first. A president drawing a line and saying, no, go fight your own war. If you want to go stand on yourself, that is not our obligation. We are here for peace. We're here for a ceasefire. But our red line is we're not going to be bullied into a conflict and being told, oh, Russia's coming here next. No, it's not. We have an ocean and a great military, and we're very wealthy. The Ukrainians, not so much. And it's refreshing to finally see a president putting America first.